Hey, hi all, welcome back to the channel again. We are going to discuss the async pipe today. So, what is meant by async pipe and why do we need to use it? So let's discuss about what is async pipe first. So async pipe is actually a built-in pipe which is available in Angular and which is nothing but a impure pipe. So as we have learned in the last video, pure pipes versus impure pipes. So the major difference I told you between them is nothing but the memory leakage issue and the performance issue. But then there may be a question arise that why do we need to use the async pipe if it is a impure pipe type, right? So the major advantage of using async pipe, even if it's an impure pipe, is nothing but it handles the asynchronous data sources very neatly and very properly. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So async pipe behind the scenes subscribes the observable data source or the promise data source, which are nothing but asynchronous data sources, and we can directly use the reference of those data sources on the template itself. We just need to apply the async pipe on that data source. That's it, and it actually does all the things for us behind the scenes. And about the memory leakage issue, so if you think of that, again, async pipe provides us a proper handling of memory leakage as well. So whenever any asynchronous data sources like observable or promises we have in our component file, we used to subscribe it and then manually in the on destroy lifecycle hook we used to unsubscribe it in order to you know avoid the memory leakage. But async pipes actually does it for us behind the scene. It subscribes the observable or promise data source, and whenever component destroys it actually unsubscribes it as well, so that the memory leakage issue will never occur. And with that, you know it actually helps Angular to trigger the change detection cycle. So why is that, right? So how it actually triggers? So as you know that impure pipes, every time Angular calls it, whenever the data changes, but unlike the pure pipe, in case of pure pipe, that actually relies on the input reference equality to you know um, determine whether that particular input data, the data source has been changed or not. In the async pipe, it actually monitors its asynchronous input. So in this case, we have a observable or promises, right? So what it does is it actually keeps track on that observable or promises to check the emitted value. If it founds the change in the emitted value, it directly triggers the change detection cycle so that Angular can recall the transform method of it, and then it should show us the latest values on the HTML. So this is the main feature of async pipe, and that's the reason we use it. And whenever we have asynchronous data or whenever we have observables which we need to show on the UI, in that case we can directly use the async pipe with the observable in the template as well. So let's actually look at the examples. The first we will understand the example based out of subscriptions, and the second one we will use the promise the async pipe on the template directly. So let's look at the example of subscription first. So for that, let me create a observable variable, And by the way, the dollar sign we actually adds it at the end of the variable name, so that we should able to identify the type of that particular variable. So if you see the dollar, then you are sure that this variable type is nothing but observable or promise type. Okay, so that's the reason we add the dollar, and Angular actually recommends us to add it, so that uh, the type, by looking at the variable itself, we should understand the type. So let's use the RxJS of method, and let's pass the object array to it, test comma name test. Let's say test2, and here let's say test1. Now we have actually created an observable variable. You can see it actually observable object array, right? So now what I need is, I need to show or look through this observable and show whatever values are there. So let's take a div over here and use the ng for the structural directive, and let's create a variable of type observable. uh, O is nothing but a template variable which we are using to iterate over the observable. So let's add the observable. So as you can see, the Angular is not allowing me to use observables directly on the template, because those are observable types. So as you can see, observable types not assignable to type ng iterable. Okay, so what do we need actually? So to loop through the observable, there are two ways, as I told you earlier as well. We need to subscribe it and take the value out of that particular observable, and assign that value to a temporary variable. So let's create a variable over here, obs of type name string array. Okay, and then let's assign an empty array to it. Now what I need is, I can subscribe to this, then whatever result comes, I need to assign that to the local variable. And now I can make use of this local variable to iterate and show it on the browser. So this is the one way. First we need to subscribe it, and then whatever value comes, we can assign it to the variable, local variable, and that we can iterate through, or we can iterate over that local variable to show whatever it contains. So now the type of this variable is nothing but object array, right? Now let me save everything, and now you can see test1 and test2, both values are printed, right? So this is the one way of using it. And again, as I told you in the information section, like in the first section, that the async pipe does it for us, the subscribe and unsubscribe. But then if you are manually subscribing it, then you need to manually unsubscribe it as well in the ng on destroy lifecycle hook. Okay, so if I use the ng on destroy lifecycle hook, then this dot temp obs dot unsubscribe I need to use. Okay, so this is how you can avoid memory leakage manually. But these all things like subscribe, unsubscribe, and showing it on the UI, whatever value comes, all things, the async pipe does it for us. Then once you give the async pipe, you don't need to worry about it. So let's use this temp obs, which is an observable type variable, directly on the template, and give a space and then use a async pipe. So once you do this, you won't see any differences. As you can see, test1 and test2 both are printed over here, right? So what it does is, it actually does whatever we have done manually, and it actually takes care for the memory leakage issues as well. And then it triggers, right? So if I create a button over here, let's say div, then button, let's say click me, save it, and let me add a method click on it, add obj into obs, okay, observable. So now let me copy this function name and add it over here. So what I can do, temp obs dot, do we have a push over here? No, we don't have. So let's, subscribe it first. Let's subscribe it, result, and then whatever results come, let's assign it to this.obs, or maybe we can create a temp variable over here. Let's say temp const temp, or maybe let temp, and then temp is equals to result, right? And now what we can do, this dot temp obs is equals to, let me add a new object to temp now, this temp dot push. Let's create it as an array type. So temp dot push, I can push a new object over here, name of type string, and the value should be string. So let's say test 3, let's say. Now what I can do, I can return a new observable over here, and then I can pass this temp over here. So let me save everything. Now whenever I click, you can see the test3 has been printed, right? So what it actually triggers the change detection cycle over here, as we are actually creating our new observable from the old one and then assigning the new, actually creating a new observable and assigning it to the same variable. And when this async pipe has attached to this observable variable, as you can see over here, it actually keeps track on that particular variable itself. So whenever it emits new value, it actually creates or triggers the change detection cycle of Angular component, and then it throws out that newly added value on the UI. So as you can see over here, the test3 has been printed, right? So I clicked twice, so test3 has been printed twice. Let me create again. You can see the test3 has been printed again over here. So this is how it actually triggers the change detection cycle, and Angular calls its transform method so that it actually shows us the newly added value. So this is the actually feature of async pipes. So I told you, as I told you in earlier in the first section of video, the info section. These are the two examples using which we have understood the significance of using the async pipe, right? And if you do not wish to use it on the template, then in that case you can subscribe it and store whatever result comes in the temporary variable, and you can show that temporary variable on the UI itself. So there are two ways, but then you need to unsubscribe this, okay, on ng on destroy lifecycle method, so that memory leakage could be avoided. So async pipe does it for us. So this is all about async pipes in Angular. So I hope you have understood it, and if you like it, then hit like button on the video, share it with your friends, right? And then do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon so that you never miss any upcoming videos. Thanks all guys. Let's meet in next video.